Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Spectrum. I am your host, Barnaby Jones, and today we are pre-recorded here on the Untold Radio Network. So, guys, if we ignore some of your comments or questions throughout the show, we're not doing it on purpose. We are just not live here in studio. This is a pre-recorded show. With that being said, guys, this weekend coming up, if you're still around, the Marinette Menominee Bigfoot and Paranormal Convention is this weekend. Myself, Rich Daniels, Chad Lewis, Doug Highcheck will all be there doing presentations for your information and entertainment. And Saturday evening, Angela Zabel will also be doing a psychic gallery reading at 7 p.m. Tomorrow night, Friday, May 31st, we have a Bigfoot hike out onto the Hayden Adventure property. It's 80 acres of private property in Menominee, Michigan. If you act now, you still might be able to get tickets. As this is pre-recorded, I can't be sure. But head on over to wisconsincaps.com and click on the banner that you see on your screen there for the Marinette Menominee Bigfoot and Paranormal Convention. And you can come out with us and go Bigfooting Friday night. And then Saturday, we have vendors and all kinds of cool stuff. So you don't want to miss it. It's going to be a blast. If you can't come in person, guys, we also have virtual tickets. Anywhere that you are in the world, you can tune in live or watch it at your convenience after it's over. All the presenters that you see on your screen there will be streamed live for you to watch online for just $5. You get that ticket at wisconsincaps.com. And then, guys, the following weekend, June 8th, we are going to be at the Chicago Paranormal Convention, Countryside Conference Center, Joliet Road, Countryside, Illinois. Admission's only $1. And my guest today is going to tell you all about it, so we'll skip ahead here. Coming up then in August, we are going to Squonkapalooza in Pennsylvania, and then CryptidCon in Lexington, Kentucky in November. And of course, guys, there's a whole bunch of library presentations coming up all over Wisconsin. So if you guys want to check those out, make sure you head on over to wisconsincaps.com and click on the public events tab, and you can find all that information. And if you want to show your support for all things here on the Untold Radio Network, here's how.
Show your support for the Untold Radio Network family of shows and join in on the conversation by using super stickers and super chats on YouTube. Got a question you want answered? Ask it live via a super chat and get real-time responses from our show's knowledgeable hosts and guests. Help keep the Untold Radio Network shows running strong. We need your support. Send your super chats and stickers now.
All right, guys, I am super excited for today's show because I have had Jack on my show numerous times. He is an absolute wealth of knowledge, but we've always talked about some of his other work with the Pale Crawlers and Rakes before on my cryptids shows, but Jack is an absolute wealth of knowledge on all things paranormal in Chicago. Jack Chavez is a paranormal researcher from the Chicagoland area. He is the founder of Chicago Paranormal and the host of the Chicago Paranormal Convention that is coming up in just a couple weeks here on the 8th of June. Jack's interest in the bizarre doesn't stop there. He also focuses his research on the Pale Crawlers or Rake beings, the Chicago Mothman sightings, and strange UFO sightings and cases. He is truly a jack of all trades. Besides all of his research, he is also a haunted location tour guide across Chicago, spinning tales of mobsters and spectral ladies haunting the graveyards. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Jack Chavez. Welcome to the show, Jack.
A jack of all trades, but master of none, Barnaby. That's right.
Well, I wasn't going to put that in there.
No, you can.
Yeah. I thought I'd throw some flattery in there because I did not get a bio from you, so I thought you'd be honored if I wrote your bio for you.
Oh yeah, I was probably supposed to send that, wasn't I?
Yeah, probably. I know you're so busy. I just take care of all your stuff for you. You know, it's all right.
Barnaby, I have a question about your introduction.
Oh yeah.
With the images. Yeah.
I check.
What was? Oh,
please go on.
The woman an ironing in the middle of the road. I don't remember what category of the paranormal that belongs to.
Oh, isn't she one of those ironing ghosts? You know, you pick her up, you drive down the road, drop off your laundry, and you come back and get it. The spectral.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the hitchhiking laundry ghost. That's yes.
Yeah, very famous. Don't you have those down in Chicago?
Yeah, we do have a couple hitchhiking ghosts in Chicago. That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do they do
Yeah.
ironing?
Not that I know of, but they should.
Yes.
You know, I mean, they're seeing the same dress all the time, so there should be some ironing taking
They
place.
must not do very much laundry then, I guess. They always wear the same clothes.
Right.
I knew this was going to be a blast right off the bat, man. Yeah, no,
This is going to be the whole show.
Excited. Like I said, yeah, this is going to be the whole show. I'm super excited, like I said, because I've never really gotten a chance too much to talk to you about paranormal. I mean, we've known each other for probably like 3-4 years now at this point, and I've always talked to you about like cryptid stuff and a little bit of paranormal, like in person and that. But we always end up talking, you know, cryptids because that's the shows that I've been hosting. But before we get to that, Jack, you got an awesome show. I've had the privilege of being at almost every one that you've run so far, except for that one.
You missed one. Yeah, you missed one. And I won't forget it.
Yeah, that was your worst one, wasn't it? Because I wasn't there.
Yeah, I put it in my diary.
Yeah, I know.
The Barnaby didn't show.
Yep. Awesome. But yeah, I've been at all of them. And what? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
They've all been amazing. From your first one that you did in that little, I don't even remember what it was, that little building. It was just wall to wall packed. And since then, your events have just gotten bigger and better every year. And I expect big things.
I appreciate it.
I know it's going to be a great time. So tell us all about what you got going on coming up next weekend.
Yeah, so we're gonna have about 80 vendors or so. There's gonna be 6 presentations on the paranormal, and you're gonna be a presenter there as well. Mm-hmm. And you're gonna talk about science and the paranormal, correct?
Correct. Yeah. How what we do with the paranormal equipment and why we use the equipment for what we do. Yep.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that presentation because usually you've done these really good cryptozoological presentations, which I'm always excited about. But now this is kind of taking a different turn here, so I'm really glad about that. So like I said, there's going to be 6 presentations altogether. Each one is a different aspect of the paranormal, and then 80 vendors. And then a lot of people get excited about this, but it's only a $1 entrance for the public. So I'm really glad that I'm able to do that at a great location. And if people are wondering, there's a lot of good parking at this location. So huge parking lots. So free that's not parking. Something that we have to. Yeah, free. That's right. Free parking too.
Huge parking lot.
Free parking.
Free parking. Yeah.
Right. And then we're going to have a caterer, and they're going to do Cajun food. So I'm excited about that. So it's going to be an all around good time. Not only do I want it to be a $1 entrance so that everybody could buy things there and not have to worry about the entrance fee, but also, it's a good place to network. Not just for the vendors, but for the public as well. A lot of people, they come away from the convention, and what they do is they add all these vendors to their friends lists. And a lot of vendors have told me that they interact with people, with customers at the convention. So it's just going to be all around a good time. There's going to be a raffle there. A lot of people get excited about the tea leaf reader. So not only is there going to be tarot readers and psychics, but we have a tea leaf reader as well. She's great. And a lot of people come away and they're just, they stay in contact with everybody else. So.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's I mean, you have definitely got some interesting vendors and interesting people that are there, because there's stuff each time that we go there. There's new vendors and new people. Like I've seen the Raelian movement. The people that basically worship aliens. Those guys were there a couple of times, and they're really cool, really neat to talk to. You have a Satanist there. And
Yeah.
he talks about that stuff, and he's a tarot reader, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He's a tarot reader. Yep.
Yeah. So I mean,
And I need to make a correction because they're sticklers about this.
okay, please do.
The Raelians, yeah, the Raelians, they don't worship.
That's right.
They see extraterrestrials as more of a space brothers, and extraterrestrials helped us evolve. According to the Raelians. So I needed to make that important distinction. But yeah,
I gotta have those guys on my show here. I've interviewed them on Whispers from the Dark, my other podcast, but we'll have to have those guys on and talk sometime. I think that'd be cool. But are they going to be there this time? Do you know?
They haven't gotten back to me, so I'm hoping they are, but I don't know for sure, to be honest.
It seems like they do like every other one or something. So yeah.
Yeah, they do. I mean, they're a nonprofit organization, and they don't get a lot, so they have to be careful on what events that they choose. But they definitely do like my event, so I'm glad about that. And if they don't show up, I mean, you have 79 other vendors to choose from. It's not just psychics and tarot readers. We're actually going to have more paranormal investigators at this convention than we've had in other conventions. So I'm actually excited about that. We have a bunch of new people that are going to be there that weren't there last year. And then if you have some old favorites, they're going to be at this one as well. So,
And not just paranormal, you got cryptid as well. I'll be there, as well as J. Nathan Couch is going to be there talking about Goatman.
That's right. Yeah, he's going to be there. And then one of the representatives for the North American Dogman Association is going to be there as well. So that should be interesting. Yeah. Yeah, it's a big ghost and cryptid group coming this time around. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I've been to all of them except for one that you've done, and they've all been absolutely phenomenal. When he says there's 80 vendors, I mean there's something for everyone. There is literally 80 vendors. Like, it's not an exaggeration. That room is packed, and the speakers are amazing. Yeah. I've gotten a chance to hear a bunch of them, and of course myself is amazing. So you got some good stuff going.
Oh, awesome! I'm glad somebody thinks so. No.
No, it really is. Like every chance I get, I talk it up, man, because you do some good work down there, and it's definitely an awesome place to network. If nothing else, if you don't want to buy anything or hear anything, I mean, there's people from all walks of life there. Any kind of paranormal or Bigfooty, cryptidy thingy is probably there in some shape or form, and it's awesome. So.
Yeah, no, to your point. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, to your point, though, it really is a good place to network because there's people like yourself that are very, they're very interactive with the public. And a lot of the vendors that are there are very interactive with the public because you got to think that they're presenting you with a belief system that is not mainstream. So people come with questions. And a lot of my vendors, I'm so glad, have been very accommodating to people and their questions and stuff like that. So it's just, like Barnaby said, if nothing else, it's a great place to network, but it's also a great place to buy a lot of things. So there you go.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Jack, moving on here. I mean, it's great. Again, that's June 8th. So coming.
No, I want to stay here 10 more minutes.
You want to stay here? Coming up on June 8th, that's going to be a great event down there again. That information and links and stuff on the website wisconsincaps.com or on the Facebook page Chicago Paranormal if you want that. And there's no advance tickets, right? You just buy them at the door.
That's correct. Yeah, it's just $1, so you just buy it at the door.
Awesome. Very cool. All right, man. So you have done a lot of stuff down in the Chicagoland area. You've researched so many things, and there's so much stuff going on down there. Where do you want to start? I mean, the whole city is so old that your history goes back. I mean, let's start with Lincoln Park. And the whole history of what happens there. I mean, this is something that, maybe people down there are familiar with, but let's start there. Let's tell me a little bit about Lincoln Park.
I would actually argue that a lot of people in Chicago don't even know what you're talking about in terms of Lincoln Park. Um, Lincoln Park used to be the city's cemetery in the late 1800s. It was divided into 4 cemeteries. There was a Catholic cemetery, a Jewish cemetery, um, and there was a pauper's grave you know for the homeless. And also during the Civil War, um, enemy soldiers were actually put in a pauper's field as well. It was just kind of like a mass grave, graves that had no identification, things like that. So that's why we say that that neighborhood is probably one of the most haunted of neighborhoods, because it's just sitting on a bunch of graves. Um, in the 1880s, there was a cholera epidemic in Chicago. So, and the reason why there was a cholera epidemic is because the graves were so close to Lake Michigan that when the bodies were decaying, the decomposition would actually go into the lake, and the lake was people's drinking water. So it created an cholera epidemic. So eventually the graves were moved. Well, at least they were supposed to be moved. Work had started, but something happened in 1871 that halted that progress. And October 8th of 1871, it was actually the Great Chicago Fire took place. And when the fire took place, it burned all the wooden markers for the graves. So after the fire, a lot of the grave diggers didn't know where the graves were, so they would just tell family members, "Oh yeah, your loved one was transported to the new grave sites," when in fact they weren't. So there is an estimated 13 to 14,000 graves that are still there, bodies still there. So even as late as the 1990s, 1998 to be precise, for the Chicago Historical Society across the street, they were breaking ground so they could create a parking lot. And when they broke ground, they dug up about 80 bodies. So, like I said, even to this day, there's still a bunch of bodies down there. The newspapers in the 1890s and early 1900s talked about ghosts in the park. And some of these stories are pretty wild. Some of these stories go as far as that the police would shoot at the ghosts. Whether or not that's true, who knows? But definitely, a lot of people knew this location to be a haunted location. It was rife with homelessness and prostitution. Nearby was a bridge, and it was basically a party bridge. People would go there to party. There was a lot of drinking around this bridge, and the bridge was also known for something else. And everybody could probably guess it was known as a suicide bridge. In fact, it was known as a suicide bridge so much that the city issued these postcards, and of landscapes within Chicago, and one of the landscapes was the bridge, and in the bottom it said "Suicide Bridge." And this was done by the city of Chicago itself. So that goes to show you, how it was between suicides, violence, and then the already established cemetery. It was ripe for ghosts. There was there is, I should say, a statue of General Ulysses S. Grant, and the statue is sitting on top of this plateau made out of limestone. Well, this was actually in the papers that there was a bad storm that took place, and this was in the 1890s, and about 10 people or so wanted to get away from the storm, so they actually went underneath this plateau that had the General Ulysses S. Grant statue. Well, while they were underneath, lightning struck the statue, and it got to the people that were hiding under it and killed everybody there. So, when I say this place is ripe for ghostly activity, it really is. Like I said, this statue was made out of limestone. A lot of, um, let me rephrase that. Limestone is a good conductor of electricity, of electromagnetism, and so is water. You have the lagoon in Lincoln Park, and you have limestone in the area as well. When you put these two things together, it creates, a conductor of paranormal activity. We believe in the ghost field, and actually, you could even argue this in the paranormal field in general. Bigfoot sightings. We believe that a lot of the phenomena encompasses electromagnetism. Um, so when there's conductors of magnetivity, what's the word? Electromag.
Go with that.
Yeah, let's go with that. Um, it creates this bridge for phenomena like that to take place, and Lincoln Park is definitely one of them. For your listeners that are in the Midwest, if you guys are familiar with Lamont, Illinois, there is the Lamont Quarry where a lot of the limestone comes from, and Lamont, Illinois itself is known to be a haunted town. You have ghosts every which way, so there's that, and you have a lot of historical buildings in Chicago that are composed of limestone. Everything from churches to the Chicago Water Tower to statues, etc. So, if your question is why is Chicago so haunted, I actually think that it's for multiple reasons. It's you have the environmental issues, or I'm sorry, environmental factors like limestone, water. There's the Chicago River. There's Lake Michigan. You have a bunch of lagoons. So there's the environmental factors, and then you have this whole history of lawlessness. Um, at any given time in the 1890s in Chicago, you had 300 operating brothels just in the south side of Chicago. Don't you wish you were living in that time, Barnaby? 300 operating. You're a pervert, Barnaby. I swear. So, no, in the south side of Chicago, you had 300 operating brothels, and this is in the 1890s. So there was so much violence. In fact, one of the brothels was known as Bucket of Blood, and it was colloquially known as that because it said that the attendant at this brothel always had to clean up the blood from the violence that took place. There was also a known human trafficking ring that would cross Chicago, and it's said that a lot of times these girls that were trafficked, their bodies would be found in gutters or in the alleys, and just sheer violence. So now you have environmental factors, you have a history of violence, and these, so many things take place for all these energies are taking place for this history of ghostly phenomena to take place. A lot of people don't know this, but Anton LaVey, who is the founder of the Church of Satanism, was actually born in Chicago. He was born in he founded the Church of Satanism in California in 1966. He was born in Chicago. My point is that Chicago is an influx of energy. There is a 1970s book called Psychic City, and it was all about psychic phenomena in Chicago and how Chicago brings all these characters, all these personalities, all these ideologies into one location. I think Chicago is a battery of sorts, just like many locations around the world, around this country, are batteries. I've been to New Orleans, and when I was in New Orleans, I felt like high energy there. I felt it. I'm not psychic, by the way. I'm not psychic. I'm not very intuitive, but I could feel such energy there. My point is, there are locations like New Orleans, like Chicago, that have these higher frequencies. When you have higher frequencies, it's more conducive to paranormal phenomena like ghosts, like UFO sightings, like Bigfoot sightings. Chicago itself doesn't have Bigfoot sightings, obviously, because it's a city, but um, there's a lot of rural areas in Chicago that does have Bigfoot sightings. So you have all this phenomena that take place, and Chicago is just ripe for the paranormal, and that's why I'm glad I'm living here, because it's a huge laboratory for me, to be honest with you.
Wow. That was awesome, Jack. That was awesome. Let me back up here, because I don't know if you probably do. What was Chicago built for? Like when it was first settled, what was Chicago established for?
Yeah, so it was actually it was a military fort, and it was called Fort Dearborn. Now you got to remember, prior to the fort, there were Native Americans living here. Now the Native Americans, they were a nomadic people, correct? Like we all know that they were nomadic people, but in Chicago, there was the Potawatomi that were actually not nomadic, but they actually settled in this area. But I believe it was the 1870s, Fort Dearborn was established, and it moved the Native Americans west, and became a military fort, and it was burned down, I believe, in 1812, and then it was rebuilt in 1816. So, yeah.
So after it burned down, I know Chicago's big for like shipping and stuff because of the ports and stuff. There was a easy way for water access and stuff. But is there any like industry that grew up there? What is the whole, like, why did that become such an important city?
Because of the waterways, like you mentioned, we have the Chicago River and the Mississippi River and Lake Michigan. So it was just a hub for industry, and you're talking irons and metals and paper. Chicago at one point was the number one industrial city in the whole world. I think right now we're at number 3, but at one point it really was. All the meat factories were in Chicago. The book by Uptown Sinclair called what's the name of the book? It was about the meat packing factories. It actually talked about the meat packing factories in Chicago and how unsanitary they were, and it caused. And I know I should know this, but the president at the time actually read the book. Oh, the book was called The Jungle. That's what it was called. It was called The Jungle. And the president read the book, and that's why regulations started to be implemented in these meatpacking factories, because it was so unsanitary. But yeah, it just goes to show that there was a lot of industry in Chicago. So a lot of like points of center, from the north, from the south, from the east, from the west, and they all converged in Chicago.
Wow. Very cool. Yeah. All right, we have to take a really quick break here for station identification. I want to remind everyone that today's show is pre-recorded. So unfortunately, if you have any questions or comments, shoot Jack a message over on the Paranormal or Chicago Paranormal Facebook page, and you can contact him through there. But we'll be right back after this.
Hey, Untold Radio Network fans. Want exclusive perks and to support our channel? Introducing our YouTube membership program with 3 amazing levels. Get loyalty badges that level up to different cryptids the longer you're a supporter. How cool is that? You'll also get access to custom Bigfoot emojis and priority in chat. Upgrade to Backstage Pass for exclusive wallpapers, photos, status updates, discounted books, and merchandise. Go all in with the producer level for everything mentioned, plus member shoutouts. Ready for an enhanced experience? Join now, pick your membership level, and let's make this journey even more exciting together.
Thank you guys so much for all of our Super Chats members here on the Untold Radio Network. We really appreciate it. It helps us keep this show running. And again, we are talking today with Mr. Jack Chavez. He is the founder of Chicago Paranormal on Facebook and your host for next week's Chicago Paranormal Convention on June 8th in Countryside, Illinois. Admission is just $1, and there's going to be what'd you say, 6 speakers?
6 speakers. Yep.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah,
All
we
right.
have. So go ahead.
No, go ahead. 6 speakers.
Yeah, 6 speakers. We have Allison Jornlin. She's going to talk about fairy and fairy sightings. We have Larry Eisler. He's going to talk about artificial intelligence and the paranormal. Of course, our best speaker, Barnaby Jones, is going to talk about science and the paranormal. We have Nate Couch, and he's going to talk about Goatman sightings. He's an author, actually, and he's his focus is Goatman and Goatman urban legends, and he's collected a bunch of reports and sightings about Goatman. And then we also have who else do we have, Barnaby?
I don't know. I honestly didn't know you had half of those speakers. From personally, I know.
And then we have Bob Anderson, who is talking about the real life. How do I say this? The real life accounts behind horror movies.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually know all of your speakers personally. Like, I've met them and talked to them and stuff, and they are all absolutely fabulous. I mean, that's a great lineup, Jack. That's awesome. So,
well, guess what, Barnaby? I know them too. Okay, you're not the only one that knows them.
I hope so. If you brought them to the convention. All right, so that's a great time, guys. Next weekend,
Barnaby. June
8th. Noon to 7 p.m. there in Countryside, Illinois. It's only $1, free parking. Come out and check it out. So yeah, that's going to be a great event, man. I'm honest to God, it's going to be a good time. So, so you're talking about Chicago being. I want to remind everyone again, we are pre-recorded for today's show. So if we're avoiding questions or comments or anything, no offense to anybody out there. We're just, we're not live today. So, anyway. You talked about Chicago being a hub of all this activity and the brothels and all that stuff going on. And with all that being there, it makes sense that Chicago was also a hub for mob activity. So Chicago, as we know, has a whole history of gangsters and mobs and this rich history. Can you tell us a little bit more about some of that?
Yeah. In terms of the mob, I mean, you could point to almost any location in any area in Chicago, and a mobster was killed there, or some hit was done by the mob. One of the most famous places that people like to talk about in connection with the mob is actually the Congress Hotel. The Congress Hotel was built in anticipation for the World's Columbian Exposition, or also known as the World's Fair, that took place in 1893. And they knew thousands and thousands of people were going to come to Chicago, so they had this hotel. And now the history of the hotel is a history of destitution and violence. But if you fast forward a couple of decades, it still is, except with the mob this time. Yeah.
Why change?
Why change, right? One Al Capone's accountants, a man named Jake Greasy Thumb Guzik, actually lived inside the Congress Hotel, and a lot of Capone's business was conducted within the hotel itself. Now, there are some rumors that are not true. For example, Al Capone did not own the Congress Hotel. There's nothing that says that he owned it. Also, Capone didn't live in the Congress Hotel. He had his own house in the south side of Chicago, in what's today the Auburn Gresham neighborhood. But we don't even know if he actually went inside the hotel. there is a strong possibility that he did, since some of his men would go to the hotel and conduct business. So it's a pretty good guess that he probably did enter it, but he didn't. He didn't live there, and he didn't own it. Um, there is a church named Holy Name Cathedral in the north side of the city. Um, when the mobster for the North Side gang. See, Al Capone, he was running the mob in the South Side, and his rival was the North Side gang. The South Side was Italian, the North Side was Irish, and the man running it was Dean O'Banion. Well, one day, Dean is in front of the church steps at Holy Name Cathedral, and there was a out on him. And so they shot him up, and they shot some of his men. His men fired back, and it was a bloody mess, literally. But Dean O'Banion survived that, actually. Even though he was punctured all over his body, he did survive the incidents. But it goes to show that there was a lot of mobster bloodshed in the city. In the South Side, in today what's known as a South Loop neighborhood, which is just south of downtown Chicago, there was a bar called the Four Deuces. Or I should say it was more of a club than a bar, but that was actually owned by Al Capone. Al Capone was known for beating men right in front of all the guests there. And we do know on at least one occasion, he unloaded his entire gun on an individual in front of everybody. The story goes is that Jake Greasy Thumb from the Congress Hotel, that he was roughed up by another gangster. So Greasy Thumb goes to the bar. He tells Capone about it, and the gentleman, or not gentleman, the gangster was there himself. And Greasy Thumb Guzik pointed out the guy to Capone. He's like, that's the guy that roughed me up. And then the guy allegedly goes to Capone and said, yeah, what are you going to do about it? And Capone took out his gun and unloaded all his bullets on the guy. The music stopped, just like in the movies. Everybody looked. The music started again, and nobody said anything about it. So, yeah.
What are you going to say? Excuse me, sir, and you're going to get the next load full, Yeah.
Right, exactly. So, Mr. Capone, you're being rude.
Could you please leave?
Yeah. It's getting a little loud in here, you know?
Wow.
So
there's
one of the more I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
One of the more famous ghost stories that people like to hear is the Hull House. Hull House was built in the late 1800s, and it was built as what's called a settlement home. At the time, it was for the homeless, and it was for orphans, it was for battered women, and it was actually established by Jane Addams. Now, the house actually started out as an actual private home. It was a mansion. But when the owner died, before he died, he wanted to give it away. And Jane Addams, who was a socialite and a humanitarian, she acquired the house, and she was traveling abroad in Britain, and she saw that there was settlement homes, that there was homes for orphans and the homeless, and she said, oh, that's a great idea. Why don't we have that in the United States? So she went back and she established the Hull House home for orphans and the homeless and for transients. And it was actually one of the first in the United States. And she was loved the country over for her work there. And at that time, it was a very seedy neighborhood. Now it's a pretty upscale neighborhood. It's on the campus of UIC, the UIC University, University of Illinois in Chicago. They actually own the building today. And one of the more famous stories is, well, before we actually get to the more famous story, um, it was known to be a haunted location already because the previous owner, his wife died in there, and they were seeing a ghostly woman descend the staircase, and they saw her upstairs. And Jane, it's funny because Jane Addams actually talked about this in one of her books. And what Jane Addams would do is she would put a pail of water um, outside her bedroom door because the superstition was that ghosts can't cross water. So she would put a pail of water outside her door so the ghosts can't enter. And that haunted room, Jane Addams didn't want to. She didn't want that to be her bedroom, even though it was an upscale bedroom. So she would leave the room for her guests, you know, which I always thought was funny. People on a tour, they get a kick out of that, like, like, oh, that's nice of her, So, so this was already known as a haunted location. Well, fast forward a couple years into her having a Hull House, there began rumors of a devil baby that lived in the house. And the story was that this devil baby lived in the upstairs. And this story actually circulated widely. You got to remember, like I said earlier, this was a seedy neighborhood. There was immigrants from all over Europe that lived in this area, and it was just known for being, a place of violence. And it's probably because you have all these cultures that were clashing with each other, and it's believed that a lot of these immigrants were taking stories from their homeland and creating new stories for their new home. That's kind of how urban legends go. So people were going into Hull House, all manners of day and night, and they were demanding to see this devil baby. Now, Jane Addams herself said that there was no devil baby, and the operators at the switchboard were taking calls throughout the nights, asking if there is a devil baby there, and they always had to say, no, there's no devil baby, it's just a rumor. But that was going on throughout the nights. The story behind it is that there was a very religious woman, a Catholic woman, who married an atheist man. And one day she put up a picture of the Virgin Mary, and the man came home and he saw the picture and he took it and he ripped it up, and he says, I'd rather have the devil for a baby than have that on my wall. He's a real nice guy, isn't he? So
knows what he wants.
Yeah, you can't fault him.
Yeah.
No. So the idea is that he cursed the baby by saying that. So when she gave birth, it was a devil baby with horns, a tail. I mean, it's a lot of these characteristics are pretty outlandish. Some of the less outlandish versions say that it was just like a very deformed baby. So she didn't want to keep the baby. She wanted to get rid of it. So she put it outside of Hull House. And Jane Addams took it in and decided to raise this quote-unquote devil baby on her own, along with the rest of the staff of Hull House. And it said that they kept the baby as it grew older. They still kept it locked up upstairs. And people will say that if you look up in the top window, even to this day, by the way, that you'll see like a ghostly child that eventually fades away the longer you stare at it. So that's the origins of the devil baby. But when I take people on tours today, people will say that they put their ear to the windows and they'll hear music playing, or they hear laughter or conversations taking place. They could never make out what's actually being said, but just like, indistinct conversations. Other people, because there's actually glass windows and it's a glass door, all around the whole house. So people will take pictures, and a lot of people on a tour will have shown me the pictures and say, there'll be an orb on there if you believe in orbs, or there'll be like some shadowy figure. Some people will say that they see figures on a top window as well. So that location is always saved for last because it's one of people's most favorite stories from the tours. So
very good. That's so cool. So you're talking a little bit about the cultural conflicts and stuff that was going on there, and people bringing over their stories from their homelands and urban legends and stuff, and that kind of leads us into another location that is a hotspot for urban legends and hitchhiking ghosts and women in white and all this stuff, and that's a lot of people have heard the story of Resurrection Mary and these cemeteries and stuff down in Chicago. So I actually don't know much about this myself. So I'm absolutely enthralled to hear everything you got to say about that.
Okay, so all the diagonal streets in Chicago and in the Chicagoland area are actually built over Native American trails. So if you're in Chicago, there's a street called Clybourne. That used to be a Native American trail, and then the most famous one is Archer Avenue. Archer Avenue was built on the Native American trail, and it goes from Chicago to to the surrounding suburbs. It's a long stretch of road. It's said that Native American trails are points of power. And that's why the Native Americans built trails at these locations, because they were paths of power. And if you go off the path, then you're not being rejuvenated. So we think that could be a reason why a lot of these diagonal roads, especially Archer Avenue, have so much paranormal phenomena that take place. And the Archer Avenue that's in the Chicagoland area is host to so many different phenomena. It goes along these woods that actually have Bigfoot sightings, reports of Bigfoot, UFO sightings. A lot of locations along Archer Avenue are haunted as well. And the most famous ghost is the one that you're talking about, called Resurrection Mary. Resurrection Mary is Chicago's queen. It is Chicago's most favorite ghost. Who Resurrection Mary was, we don't actually know. There are a lot of theories. The most famous story is that there was a ballroom. It was called the O. Henry Ballroom. In modern age, it was known as the Willowbrook Ballroom. That actually caught on fire a couple years ago. I was actually there a couple days before it caught on fire, interesting enough. So it, unfortunately, well, you know what? Maybe I do. Maybe I do, Barnaby. Leave me alone. Let me live my life, okay?
I was waiting for you to say you were there that night it happened, and I was really going to give you carry on.
So at the time in the 1930s, it was known as the O. Henry Ballroom, and the story goes that there was a girl there named Mary, and she was really beautiful, and she would go there all the time, and it was one of her favorite places to go. Well, she leaves the ballroom, and she gets into an accident. Some stories say that she was actually hit by a car. Other stories say that she was with some friends and she got into an accident. Whatever the case is, ever since then, people will see a girl or a young woman just kind of walk along Archer Avenue, which is where the O. Henry Ballroom sat. She'll walk along Archer Avenue, and some people will pull over and ask if she wants a ride. And the most famous case was Jerry Palis. What happened with Jerry was that he was driving along at night on Archer Avenue. He had just passed by the O. Henry Ballroom, and he sees this kind of young looking girl just by herself, and it was a cold night, and she's wearing this kind of like a thin dress. So he pulls over. And you got to remember, at that time, it wasn't so weird to pull over and ask if somebody needs a ride, you know. So he pulls over and he asks her, like, "Hey, it's really cold out. Why don't you let me know where you live and I'll take you home?" And she agrees. She gets in the back seat, and she tells him where she lives. And he starts heading over there, and he's trying to make conversation with her, and she's really quiet. She's not giving him much to go on. Well, along the routes, they passed by Resurrection Cemetery, and she urges him to stop the car, and he goes, "Why? Why here? We're in the middle of nowhere." And she just said, "Stop the car, stop the car." So he does, and she gets out of the car and she walks to the gates of the cemetery. And when she walks to the gates of the cemetery, she disappears right in front of him. She kind of just like fades away. And he's in disbelief. And he doesn't know what the heck happened. But he looks back and he sees that she left her sweater in the back seat. So he doesn't know what to make of this, obviously, right? So he goes home. He's stunned, but he's all like, I gotta, maybe I should just take her sweater home, to her house, I should say. So at some point after that night, whether it was the next day or the day after that, he decides that he'll drive to her place and take her sweater back. So he gets to the location that she gave him, and he knocks on the door, and this woman answers and said, "Hey, I had picked up your daughter yesterday, and but she left her sweater in the back of my car, and I just wanted to drop it off." And the woman goes, "I don't have a daughter." And he's like, "Yeah, this is the address that she gave me." And she goes, No, I don't have a daughter." And she's about to close the door, but behind the woman, on the mantle, he sees a picture, and there's a picture of the girl Mary that he saw yesterday. And he goes, that's her right there. That's your daughter. And she looks back and then looks back at him and says, "You couldn't have picked up my daughter because my daughter has been dead for years." And Jerry Palis is, obviously stunned by this. Jerry Palis actually goes on to be interviewed by Unsolved Mysteries. So his episode is there. A lot of the known ghost hunters in Chicago that were around during that time actually interviewed him, like Richard Crowe. Richard Crowe has a book called Chicago Street Guide to the Supernatural. It's a great book if you want to know about ghosts. Also, Dale Kaczmarek wrote several books on Chicagoland ghosts, and they interviewed Jerry Palis as well. Ever since then, every so often, people will report seeing this ghostly woman along Archer Avenue near the Henry Ballroom or the Willowbrook Ballroom. Some people will say that they pass by her and they'll look back in their mirror because they'll think it's so odd that some girl is just walking around late at night in a dress. So they'll look in their rear view mirror and she'll be gone. And they'll be like, we just passed her. How could she be gone? Other people have picked her up as well. And it's a similar accounts where they'll look back and she'll be gone. Or they get close to the cemetery and she'll have disappeared. Um, I've spoken to, Barnaby, you know him, Sam Moranto.
Mhm.
Sam Moranto is a mutual friend of ours. Sam Moranto is actually not in the ghost field. He's actually in the UFO field. But Sam Moranto actually witnessed Resurrection Mary himself. He said that he was with his wife in a car. It was at night, and they're along Archer Avenue, and they see a girl there in the side of the road, and they pass by, and she disappears. So Sam actually has a lot of cool stories, but I think that's one of my more favorite ones because it hits so close to home, So,
Um, offhand, do you happen to know when? What was the last guy's name? Unsolved Mysteries guy.
Jerry Palis.
Do you know when that incident happened?
I do. I have it right here, Barnaby.
As he pulls out his phone and Googles it. Yeah.
1936.
Oh, so it was quite a while ago. Well, I mean, like, I was thinking like the 90s or something, but no, yeah, like 36. Wow.
He was interviewed. He was interviewed several times, but the Unsolved Mystery one episode took place in the 80s.
Okay.
And he passed away in the 90s. So.
Okay. I'm just wondering because there's so many stories about these hitchhiking ghosts, and they're all like the same like that, where they leave a piece of clothing behind. Yep. And there's legend and lore about how hitchhiking ghosts can borrow a piece of clothing from someone, like at a bar or wherever they happen to be, and as long as they have that piece of clothing or until dawn, they can hold a physical form. Have you heard any of that stuff?
Yeah, I have. And yeah, you're right, actually. The hitchhiking ghost story is so similar around the country. It's not unique to Chicago. There's another one in California that's word for word like the one that I said, So I've grappled with this. Is it a lot of people, hoaxing? Or is there something else going on? Interestingly, Hawaii has a similar hitchhiking ghost story, but in Hawaii, the legend goes that it's not just a ghost, that it's actually a goddess. It's a goddess that takes the form of a person. So that makes me think, right? What if just like you come across in Indian mythology and Greek mythology and Roman mythology, the gods manifest themselves here on Earth and they take on a human form. What if Resurrection Mary is one of these deities that take on a human form to check up on the environments, to see what's to see what's going on, to interact with humans? Another idea I have is, what if Resurrection Mary is a part of the environment? And what I mean by that is that it's an environmental spirit. There is it's like kind of like the jinn in Muslim mythology. The jinn is for a specific locations. There is a word there or a phrase in ancient Greece. It's called the genie loci, and the genie loci are spirits that are specific to a location. So what if not only houses have spirits, but what if just on a broader term, locations could have spirits as well? And what if these spirits are able to manifest better than other locations? And perhaps the energy from Archer Avenue, the energy from the Native American Trail allows it to manifest more solid than in other locations. And this Resurrection Mary is this environmental deity that's maybe taking care of the location, watching over the location. I don't know. It's kind of all guesswork, but that's something that I just kind of been thinking about in terms of Resurrection Mary, since you see these ghosts all over the place. So
Yeah, the hitchhiking ghost story is not a unique story by any means. I mean, they're all over the country. You hear these stories, like you said, and the ending is a little bit different. I've heard where the guy goes back to the grave, or he finds out that the woman's daughter's dead, and he takes the sweater to visit the gravesite, or the sweater's at the gravesite or something like that. The same coat.
Yeah.
And he lends her his coat. He picks her up, lends her his coat, and then drops her off, forgets to get the jacket back. And then she says, "Oh, what do you mean she's been dead?" He goes to the cemetery and his jacket's on the gravesite, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I've definitely come across that story too. Yeah, there's a couple different versions, just like a lot of urban legends. There's a couple different versions, but there's some urban legends that are, they're clearly just stories that are made up by the local kids. But then there's other urban legends where it's a little bit harder to dispute. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. Man, you have not disappointed me today, because I mean, we've talked so much about the pale crawlers and the rakes and Mothman and stuff together, and there's this whole other side of you that I knew existed, and I'm so happy that we got to just kind of just scratch the surface, because I mean, I know there's so much more to Chicago. I got to go on a tour with yourself and Tony Sabisky. Hopefully I said that right. And
Zabelski. Yeah.
There we go. All right. But I got to go on a tour with you guys, and it was absolutely phenomenal. And there's so much more that we could dig into here, and I hope we get a chance to come back and revisit.
I wanted to like kind of give you the highlights, kind of give you like the most famous of the ghost stories. But you're right, Barnaby. There's so much that we could unpack here. There's so many ghost stories in Chicago that I could talk about hours and hours on, so that's why you're going to have me back.
I will, definitely, man. And I was surprised, man, you totally skipped over the St. Valentine's Day massacre.
Oh,
I was waiting, and you went into the house there and skipped right over that. I'm like, oh, all right, we're not going to talk about that.
Oh, yeah, we can.
I know you got to get going here in a little bit, so I'm not going to keep you. I mean, that's definitely a story for another day. We'll come back and check on that.
Okay.
And so I know you got a time crunch here. So, but definitely we're going to have you back, because I also want to talk about UFOs in Chicago, because we haven't even talked about that. And that's a whole episode on its own. So definitely, I hope, I mean, by no means you have not disappointed me today. You are a wealth of knowledge as always, and I'm just amazed at all the things that you know, and so much more information to dig into, and I'm so happy to have you on, and I look forward to coming down in next week here for the Chicago Paranormal Convention. $1 admission and free parking, over 80 vendors, 6 speakers, great speakers, by the way. I mean, that's an amazing lineup.
Yeah.
And Chicago Paranormal on Facebook, correct?
Correct. Yes.
So just search Chicago Paranormal, and you can message Jack. He runs that. That's a phenomenal Facebook page as well. Anything else you got going on? Any other shows or podcasts or links that you want to share for everyone?
No, the most important one right now is the convention. I'm writing a couple different articles for magazines. So the next time you have me back, I could introduce those. But I better see you guys at the convention. I better.
Sounds good, man. Well, we will be there for sure, and you can come out and hang out with the Caps team. Myself, Ma, Rez, Christina Bloom. So many great people are going to be there. Bob Anderson, Jay Couch, Allison Jornlin.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right, so there you go.
Yeah. Me. No,
Jack Chavez. Yeah, that's right. Jack will be there.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. So thank you again so much for coming on. I look forward to it, and I look forward to catching up with you in a couple weeks here.
For sure. I'm looking forward to it, Barnaby.
All right. Take care, man.
Thank you.
All right, guys. So that does it for this week's episode. Coming up, guys, next week here on the Paranormal Spectrum, we have a special guest, Nancy Tim. Oh my God, I always had this right. Thames, like the river in London. Thames. There we go. Nancy Thames is going to be on. She is a former Department of Defense employee, and she's going to be sharing some strange stories and UFO encounters and stuff on next week's show on Thursday at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time here on the Untold Radio Network. And coming up next Monday, or this Monday, on Monsters on the Edge here on the Untold Radio Network, Tobe Johnson joins us to talk all about Owl Moon Lab. It is a Bigfoot hotspot, and he will be here to tell us all about that. So that's what we got coming up. So until next time, guys, remember, we're all part of the paranormal spectrum. I'll see you next time, guys.
You seem to know something I don't. What's going on?